realize how quiet my house had become until the silence started sounding like him. It was the kind of quiet that didn't just sit in the room. It curled around your ankles, climbed your spine, and whispered memories you weren't ready to remember. The kind that made even the hum of the fridge feel too loud. Mark had been gone for 3 years, but some nights it felt like I had only just washed his favorite mug. That night, I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't waiting for anyone. I had just stepped out of the shower, pulled on one of his old shirts, the one that hung off me like I didn't know how to fill it anymore, and was about to sink into the couch when the doorbell rang. Not a knock, a bell. Like whoever was out there had no idea what kind of house they were ringing into. I hesitated. Barefoot, damp hair, no bra, just the soft cotton of what was left of a man I once loved. I thought about ignoring it, but my feet had already moved, carried by the kind of loneliness that makes you curious for anything unexpected. When I opened the door, he was there, a boy. No, a young man holding 2 pizza boxes stacked awkwardly in his arms. He looked up, then immediately looked away. I caught the flicker of panic in his face before he buried it under a polite smile. "Hey," he said, almost too softly. "Delivery for Rachel." I nodded, suddenly aware of the way the cool night air brushed my thighs. The hem of the shirt fluttered, and I saw his eyes dart down for just a second, just long enough to catch it, just long enough for him to know I saw. "Large pepperoni," he added quickly, shifting the boxes like they might shield him. I reached out, fumbling with my phone and the stack of unread mail still in my hand. A letter slipped free, floated down to the floor. I bent instinctively, too fast, and that's when one of his boxes slipped sideways. "Shit, sorry," he gasped, barely catching it with his knee. I laughed, surprised by the sound of it. "You're good. I'm the one who can't manage a piece of paper." He handed over the pizzas, and our fingers brushed. His skin was warm. He flinched, not out of fear, but like something had surged, and he didn't know what to do with it. "Thanks," I said, my voice gentler than I meant. He looked up, really looked, this time. And for a moment, I forgot I was a woman in a dead man's shirt, and remembered I was still something else, still someone else. He cleared his throat. "Enjoy your night." As he turned, I grabbed a 20 from the counter and slipped it into his hand. He blinked. "This is, keep it," I said. Then I smiled, not out of politeness, but because something in me needed to, and closed the door. The latch clicked behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I exhaled like I'd been holding something in for years. I set the pizza down. Jasper, my old black cat, watched me from the couch with half-lidded eyes, like he knew something had shifted. I sank into the cushions, took a bite, and let the flavor melt slowly on my tongue. It wasn't the pizza that tasted different. It was the way I remembered his eyes, not the color, but the heat behind them, not the way he looked at me, but how hard he tried not to. I didn't know it then. But that night, something opened, something dangerous, something alive. I didn't realize how quiet the house had gotten until the silence started pressing against me like it wanted to be noticed. It was the kind of silence that grew louder with time, not sudden or dramatic, just persistent, like a slow leak from a place you thought was sealed shut. Mark had been gone 3 years, cancer, quick, cruel. But sometimes, in the evenings, I still expected to hear the soft sound of his keys or his voice calling my name from the kitchen. That night, the rain had just begun. A soft drizzle tapping the windows, not enough to bother with, but just enough to make everything feel slower, heavier. I was barefoot, wrapped in the last piece of him I still wore, an old flannel shirt that no longer smelled like him, but still knew how to fall over my shoulders in that familiar way. The top buttons were undone. I didn't care. I had poured myself a glass of wine I wouldn't finish and had just sat down when the doorbell rang. For a second, I didn't move. It was late. I wasn't expecting anyone, but something in me rose, something small and sharp and curious. I stood and padded to the door. When I opened it, the boy on the porch almost dropped the boxes in his arms. He blinked, looked at me, then down, then quickly away, his ears turning red. "Hi, large pepperoni for Rachel." I nodded, my voice caught somewhere behind my ribs. "That's me." He shifted his weight, adjusted the pizza boxes like a shield, and tried not to look again. He couldn't have been older than 22, maybe 23. Red curls peeked from under his cap, and his jaw was clean, too clean, like he hadn't lived enough to stop shaving yet. His name tag said Tyler. He looked like a kid trying to play grown-up, and the effort was endearing. I reached for the boxes, juggling my phone in one hand, and dropped an envelope from the pile of unopened mail. "Oh, sorry, 1 sec." I bent to grab it, and in the moment my body moved, his balance shifted, one box tilted, nearly sliding off the top. He let out a small curse and caught it just in time, barely. "Sorry," he muttered, not looking at me. You're good," I said, smiling. "Honestly, this is more excitement than I've had all week." He looked up then, just for a moment. And in that moment, I saw it, the uncertainty, the curiosity, the restrained awareness between us, quick as a spark, but sharp enough to cut. I took the boxes, brushing his fingers by accident. They were warm, his breath hitched. "Thanks," I said, softer this time. He swallowed. "Enjoy your night." I turned before I could think too much and grabbed a 20 from the side table, handed it to him without a word. He stared. "This is too much. Keep it," I said. Then I smiled. A real one. I wasn't sure where it came from. Maybe it had been waiting. He blinked, nodded, then walked back to his car, almost too quickly, as if he was afraid he'd done something wrong. I closed the door for a moment. I leaned against it, felt the quiet settle again, but it wasn't the same kind. This time it buzzed, like something had been shaken loose and hadn't yet found a place to land. Jasper sat on the edge of the couch, his tail flicking, watching me, judging me maybe. I sat beside him, set the pizza down, took a slice, but didn't eat right away. Instead, I stared out the window where the delivery car had disappeared and whispered to no one. What the hell was that? There was no answer, just the soft tap of rain, and something unfamiliar humming beneath my skin. The pizza was still warm when I took the first bite, but I barely tasted it. Jasper curled beside me, his body a silent weight pressing into my hip. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving behind that strange stillness that only comes when the world hasn't quite decided what to do next. But I knew exactly what I was doing. I was replaying the way Tyler's eyes had flinched away, then returned, then tried again not to look. That tiny dance of hesitation, not because he was rude, but because he was trying too hard not to be. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me like that, or more accurately, looked away like that. I told myself I was overthinking, that it was nothing, that he was just a kid trying to do his job. But there was something in the way his fingers had lingered too long on the box. The way the air between us had stretched just a little too thin. I finished 2 slices, left the third untouched, then sat there, elbows on knees, staring at the now closed door. It wasn't hunger that tugged at my chest. It was something else. I told myself it didn't matter. But when noon rolled around the next day, and I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone, I found my thumb hovering over the pizza app. My breath caught. I hesitated. Then I ordered the same thing, large pepperoni, same address, same instructions. I told myself I was just hungry. Told myself it was easier than cooking. But the second I pressed confirm, my heart started beating like I was getting ready for a date, which was ridiculous. And still, I brushed my hair, put on leggings, the soft gray ones that hugged my hips just enough to feel like I remembered my body. I left the flannel shirt, 2 buttons undone, not because of anyone else, just comfort. That's what I told myself. I tidied the living room, lit a candle I hadn't touched in weeks, cinnamon and clove. The one Mark always said made the house smell like Christmas. I stood back, looked at the room like a stranger might see it, then immediately hated myself for doing that. 30 minutes. The delivery tracker glowed on my phone like a countdown. I kept walking to the window, then away, checked the mirror, tucked a loose strand of hair, then untucked it again. I wasn't sure if I was excited or ashamed, maybe both. When the knock finally came, I opened the door a little too fast, and it wasn't him. A different man stood there, taller, slimmer, deep brown skin, and clear green eyes that didn't flinch, didn't avoid. He smiled the way people do when they already know you're going to smile back. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, holding out the pizzas. His voice was smooth, confident, nothing shy about it. I blinked, took the boxes automatically. "Thanks." His hand brushed mine, and unlike Tyler, he didn't flinch. He paused, held the moment. "You've got good taste," he said, glancing at the receipt. "Same order, 2 days in a row." I let out a soft laugh. Guess guess I'm a creature of habit. Nothing wrong with that. His grin widened. Though I should warn you, patterns like that tend to get noticed. Oh. He tilted his head slightly. By people like me. There was a beat of silence, light but charged. Well, I said, trying to sound breezy, you caught me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slip of paper. In case you ever want delivery, off the clock. He handed it to me, a name, Jordan, a number. I raised an eyebrow. Do you give your number to all your customers? Only the interesting ones. He winked, then turned and walked back to his car, like he hadn't just shattered the quiet in my life for the second time in 2 days. I stood there a moment, holding the paper, holding the pizza, holding my breath, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel invisible. The slip of paper sat on my kitchen counter like it was waiting for a decision. I'd picked it up, set it down, picked it up again. Jordan, his name had bold, round handwriting. The kind you imagine belongs to someone who makes decisions quickly and rarely second guesses them, not like me. It had been years since a man had flirted with me, if that's what it was, years since someone looked me in the eyes and seemed to actually see something worth risking a wink for. I ran my fingers along the edge of the note, then let them curl into a loose fist. It was ridiculous. He was just being friendly, that's all. Except it wasn't just friendliness I'd felt when his fingers brushed mine. It wasn't just customer service when he looked at me and smiled like I was a question he wanted the answer to. I turned the paper over, blank on the back. I stared at my phone, then I called. He picked up on the second ring. Jordan, his voice. It wasn't just smooth. It was warm, unbothered, like I'd caught him mid-laugh. Hi, it's Rachel from, yesterday. A pause, then that soft chuckle again. Rachel, of course. I swallowed. I wanted to thank you for the pizza. Oh, come on, he said. You didn't call just for that. No, I admitted. I didn't. There was a silence between us. Not awkward, something more playful, like we were both leaning over the same ledge, deciding if we'd jump. You hungry again? He asked. Maybe, I said. Depends what's on the menu. Another soft laugh, but this one had a different shape to it, like he heard the edge in my voice and liked it. I could be convinced to make another delivery, he said. Off the clock, of course. That's a bold offer. Well, he said, you seem like someone worth showing up for. I should have stopped there, should have said goodnight. Thank you, something polite. But my mouth moved before my doubt could catch up. What if I said, bring a friend? There was a pause. You mean Tyler? I bit my lip. He seemed sweet. I'll say this, Jordan replied, his voice dropping a little. He hasn't stopped talking about you. My heart skipped. He's a good kid, Jordan added, bit shy. But I think he'd come along if I asked. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling like it held the answers I didn't have the courage to say out loud. I don't know what I'm doing, I whispered. That's okay, he said. You don't have to know. You just have to want something different. My hand gripped the phone a little tighter. I closed my eyes. I do. Another pause, then. We'll be there in 20. He hung up. I sat in the quiet that followed, my breath tight, my skin hot. The old version of me would have panicked, would have called back, canceled everything, deleted the number, buried it beneath layers of guilt and laundry. But this version just stood up, went to the bedroom, and changed into something I hadn't worn in years. Something soft, something black, something that didn't apologize. When the knock came, it was louder than before, more certain. I opened the door, and there they were, Jordan, easy and comfortable in his skin, hands in his pockets, Tyler, one step behind, eyes wide but not afraid. Evening, Jordan said, like this was the most natural thing in the world. Hi, I breathed, then I stepped aside and let them in. Jordan walked in first, easy smile, calm steps, like he'd been here before. Like this wasn't strange at all. Tyler followed closely, his eyes darting around the room, never quite landing on me. Nice place, Jordan said, glancing at the soft lighting, the candle flickering on the coffee table. Smells like memory. It's cinnamon, I replied, closing the door behind them. Supposed to feel like home. Tyler offered a small smile. It does feel like that. I nodded, unsure of what to say next. I led them into the living room. The pizza sat unopened on the table. Jasper had moved from the couch to the windowsill, his tail twitching like he was keeping score. Can I get you something to drink? I asked, already walking toward the kitchen. Water's good, Tyler said quickly. Same, Jordan added, voice still wrapped in that warm velvet of his. I poured 3 glasses. My hands were steady, my breath less so. When I returned, they were both seated on the couch, Jordan on the far right, Tyler beside him, posture stiff, arms tucked close to his sides. I handed out the drinks, then sat across from them, legs folded beneath me, the silk of my robe brushing against my skin like a quiet reminder. So I said, lifting my glass, do you always do deliveries together? Jordan chuckled. Only when there's something interesting to deliver to. Tyler blushed so quickly, it was almost comical. He cleared his throat, tried to look at me, then back at his water. I didn't say anything, he mumbled. I smiled, soft and slow. Relax, I'm not offended. Flattered, maybe. Jordan leaned back, watching both of us. He was right, by the way, about you. And what exactly did he say? I asked, sipping from my glass. He tilted his head. That you made him nervous, but in a good way. I turned my eyes to Tyler. He looked like he wanted to vanish, and I couldn't help it. I liked the way he squirmed. Not out of discomfort, but out of unfamiliar energy. Well, I said, setting my glass down, that's fair. I haven't made anyone nervous in quite some time. Silence stretched for a breath, then another. I reached forward, opened the pizza box. Let the scent fill the room. Anyone hungry? Jordan grinned, always. I handed out slices. The air between us eased, as the simple act of eating gave us somewhere to rest our hands, our eyes, our thoughts. We talked about nothing important, music, local weather, weird delivery stories. Jordan did most of the talking. Tyler listened, occasionally chiming in with a quiet "yeah" or "me too." But every time I glanced over, his gaze dropped to my collarbone, then quickly away. Jordan noticed. Of course he did. "You okay, man?" he said, nudging Tyler with his elbow. "You look like she's gonna eat you." Tyler gave a breathy laugh. "Not exactly." I leaned forward slightly, resting my chin on my palm. Would that be such a bad thing? His cheeks flushed deeper. Jordan raised an eyebrow, amused. "She's got bite. I warned you," we laughed. But underneath it, there was a current building, slow, steady, something unspoken inching closer to the surface. The pizza disappeared faster than I expected. I stood to clear the plates, letting the fabric of my robe sway just enough. I could feel them watching me. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was charged. I paused by the doorway, turned slightly over my shoulder. "Be right back." Their eyes followed me, and though no one said a word, I could feel the shift, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. The hallway felt longer than usual. My bare feet moved quietly over the wooden floor, and with every step, I became more aware of the robe brushing against the back of my knees, the soft rustle of fabric, the way the air felt warmer, heavier in the bedroom. I paused at the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't someone I saw often anymore. Her eyes held something lit, something risky. The robe, tied loosely at the waist, shimmered beneath the dim light like it had been waiting for this moment longer than I had. I didn't adjust anything, didn't smooth my hair or tug the tie tighter. I just stood still, let the feeling settle, then turned and walked back. Their voices hushed the moment I stepped into view. I didn't need confirmation. I saw it in their eyes, the silence that falls when presence demands it. Jordan gave a low whistle, lips curved in open admiration. "Well, damn," he said, "you don't play fair." I smiled, slow and steady. I didn't realize we were playing. Tyler didn't speak. His eyes were wide, lips parted, fingers clenched lightly around his water glass. I could almost feel his pulse from across the room. I crossed the space slowly, letting each step be its own statement. The room seemed to shift with me, like the gravity had changed. I didn't sit across from them this time. I sat between them, the couch dipped beneath my weight, my knees brushing lightly against theirs. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it pulsed. "You boys still hungry?" I asked, my voice just above a whisper. Jordan laughed under his breath. "Depends what's on the menu." I turned to him, letting my eyes linger, then glanced toward Tyler. He was still tense, still holding that glass like it grounded him. I reached out, gently resting a hand on his arm. "Relax," I said, my tone low. "We're just having a bit of fun, nothing you don't want." He blinked, then nodded, like he was giving himself permission. His shoulders eased, just a little. Jordan leaned closer, voice soft but edged with amusement. "She's got a way with people, doesn't she?" I didn't look at him. I kept my gaze on Tyler. Sometimes people just need the right kind of attention. Tyler exhaled, slow and shaky. "I've never been in a situation like this. That makes three of us, I said gently. We're all just feeling it out. The moment held. There was no rush, no clear destination, just the current. I could feel it, the energy shifting, the edges of something warm and electric unfurling slowly between us. Not heat, not touch, but possibility. It moved like a song with no words, a pulse with no beat, the kind of thing you don't name, only feel outside. The wind stirred the trees inside. Nothing moved, but everything had changed. No one moved first. We sat there, suspended, three bodies, one breath, and a room thick with something unspoken. My fingers still rested lightly on Tyler's arm. Jordan leaned back, one arm draped along the couch behind me, but not touching. Yet the air buzzed, not like noise, but like the air itself had grown warmer, more aware. A kind of static waiting for a spark. Tyler's eyes flicked to mine, uncertain. I offered him a small nod, the kind that said it's okay to stay exactly where you are or to step closer if you want. The choice was his. That, more than anything, seemed to soften him. His shoulders eased. He let out a breath he'd been holding for too long. Jordan shifted slightly, resting his elbow on the cushion behind me, his fingers grazing the back of my neck in a way that wasn't quite accidental. But not a demand either, just a presence. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let myself lean not into him, not into Tyler, but into the space between us. That charged space where things don't have names yet, but carry weight, where silence speaks louder than words, and eye contact holds more meaning than any touch could. A flicker of something passed between all three of us, curiosity, want, maybe even a little fear. But none of it felt wrong. It felt real, the kind of real that doesn't need explanation. Jordan's voice broke the stillness, low, careful. You feel that too? I nodded. Yeah. I don't know what this is, Tyler said, barely above a whisper. You don't have to, I replied. You're allowed to feel something without defining it. Jordan's fingers brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, gentle, slow, like the gesture itself held more weight than any kiss might have. There were no bold moves, no sudden touches, just that slow unfurling of energy, like steam curling up from a cup held between cold hands, intimate in its restraint, powerful in its patience. Tyler shifted closer, just an inch. His knee touched mine. He didn't look at me when it happened, just kept his eyes down, like he was afraid the moment might vanish if he looked straight at it. I let my hand slide down his arm until our fingers touched. He didn't pull away. My other hand rested gently on Jordan's thigh, not possessive, just honest. His breath caught, not because of the contact, but because of everything it meant without saying a word. We stayed like that, connected by almosts, the space between us humming, not with urgency, but with presence, with permission. There was no need to rush, no need to act. Sometimes, the most powerful moments are the ones where nothing breaks, where everything simply leans in quietly and chooses to stay. The The morning light slipped in slowly, soft and pale, spilling across the hardwood floors like it was afraid to wake me. I blinked into the quiet. My robe was still wrapped around me, the tie slightly loosened, the hem curled beneath my legs. The couch cushions were warm beneath my back, but I was alone, not alone in the way I had been, that aching, empty kind. This was different, the kind of alone that still carried the echo of warmth, the kind that left behind breath marks on glass. I sat up slowly. Jasper leapt down from the windowsill and padded over without a sound, brushing against my calf as if to say, "You're still here, good." My hand ran over the spot where Jordan had been, then where Tyler had sat. There were no notes, no voices, no goodbyes, just stillness. And yet, it didn't feel like something had ended. It felt like something had begun, quietly, respectfully, then stepped aside to give me space to notice it. I stood and stretched, joints popping, the weight of my own body grounding me in the present, in the now, in the mirror. I looked different, not dramatic. But something in my face had shifted, less blur, more presence. I didn't rush to clean the living room, didn't fold the blanket, or gather the glasses. I let it be, let it linger, like proof that the night had happened, that I'd allowed something unscripted to unfold in my carefully measured life. The kettle whistled. I poured hot water over a bag of chamomile and watched the steam rise, carrying with it some invisible part of the night. I cupped the mug in both hands, felt the warmth bleed into my palms. My phone buzzed one new message. Jordan. Had a good time. You've got this glow now. Don't let it fade. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled. Not at the words, at the fact that they didn't ask for anything, just noticed, just saw me. I sipped my tea, closed my eyes, and in the quiet, I let myself feel proud, not for what I'd done, but for what I'd let in, for what I'd let go. The next morning, I went to the grocery store for milk and walked out with flowers I hadn't meant to buy. Pale yellow tulips, soft and open. They sat in my basket like a small rebellion, like proof of something unnamed. I placed them on the kitchen counter when I got home, trimmed the stems, and set them in water. They leaned toward the window like they already knew where the light was. Later, I walked to the cafe near the library. The barista smiled and asked if I wanted my usual, and I almost said yes. But I didn't. I asked for something new, something sweeter. I don't know why everything felt just a little different. The streets, the air, the way I moved through both. People passed me without notice, but I didn't feel invisible. I felt present, like I was part of something again, even if no one else saw it in the bookstore. I wandered longer than usual. Let my fingers skim the spines without looking for anything in particular. A man at the poetry shelf glanced over, offered a small nod. He looked my age, clean-cut, kind eyes. "Good choice," he said, pointing to the book in my hand. I smiled. "I haven't decided yet." "Well," he said, "if you ever want to talk about poems over coffee, I laughed softly, gratefully. Maybe. He left it at that, no pressure, just a possibility. And that felt nice. The idea of maybe. I walked home slower than usual, let the breeze brush against my cheeks, and pull at the sleeves of my sweater. At the front door, I paused, looked out at the street, empty and quiet, then went inside. The house felt full, not with people, but with echoes, with color. I passed the record shelf and stopped. My hand hovered over Mark's albums, then picked one. A quiet one, the kind we used to play on Sunday mornings when the world felt gentle. I set it on the player, watched the needle drop, then turned it off. No sound, no grief, just stillness. I didn't need it to fill anything, not anymore. I made tea, let Jasper curl in my lap, watched the light move across the floor. And for once, I didn't think about what I was missing. I thought about what I'd found. The note was tucked beneath the edge of the pizza box, almost like it didn't want to be found too quickly. I hadn't noticed it the night before. Or maybe I wasn't meant to. Maybe Tyler had placed it there quietly, hoping I'd discover it on my own time. On a quieter morning, like this one, I unfolded the paper slowly. His handwriting was small, careful, like he wasn't sure how much space he was allowed to take up. You reminded me that people can still be beautiful, even when they think they're not being seen. That was it. No number, no name, no expectation, just a sentence. But something in my chest folded around it like a secret. I sat with it for a long time. My tea had gone cold on the counter. The windows were wide open, letting in that soft, late morning breeze that smelled faintly of salt and distant fires. It rustled the curtains, the flowers, the corners of the note in my hand, beautiful. I didn't know if I believed him, not fully, not yet. But I believed that he believed it. And somehow, that was enough. I picked up my phone, opened a new message. Thank you, Tyler. That meant more than I can say. I didn't send it to a number. I didn't know his. I just wrote it, read it out loud, and let it sit there. Then I deleted it, not because it didn't matter, but because it had already done what it needed to. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror as I passed, not for flaws, not for proof, just to look, to see. And I realized slowly that the attention from them, Jordan's confidence, Tyler's quiet reverence, it had never really been about them. It had been about me, about what had been locked up behind years of grief and silence, about the way I had gone still, like a room no one entered anymore, about how I had waited so long for someone to knock that I forgot I could open the door from the inside. I tucked the note into a drawer, not to hide it, just to keep it. Then I opened every window in the house, let the air in, let the day happen. And in that moment, I knew something had shifted, not the world, me. It started with a knock, again. Not urgent, not shy, just steady, like someone knocking on a door they already knew would open. I didn't rush to answer. I was in the kitchen, wearing an old sweatshirt, thick socks, and no makeup. There was flour on my hands from baking something I hadn't even planned to eat. Just the act of making it had felt like enough. When I opened the door, Jordan stood there, no pizza box, no clipboard, just him. "Hey," he said, like this wasn't unexpected. "Hey," I answered, stepping back without being asked. He came in slowly, the way you do when a place no longer feels foreign. His eyes scanned the space like he was checking for something, not danger, but presence. I closed the door behind him. "You weren't answering texts," he said, but there was no accusation in it. "I know," I said. "I've just been quiet." He nodded. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. "I think I'm learning how to be." He studied me for a beat, then smiled, not wide, not flirtatious, just warm. We didn't go to the couch. We sat on the porch instead. The air was cool, clouds drifting low and soft. A few kids biked by down the street. Jasper curled at our feet like a shadow that had finally stopped moving. I wrapped both hands around my mug and watched the steam rise. Jordan leaned back, arms resting on the rails. "You feel different," he said. "I am," I replied. "Good different." I turned toward him, met his eyes. Yes, the kind that doesn't need saving. He didn't speak for a moment, then he laughed, low, genuine. "I like that." The silence between us settled again, but it wasn't empty. It was steady, like the sound of waves when you're no longer afraid of the tide. I didn't know what this was, what we were, what we could be, but I didn't need to know. Some nights don't demand answers. They just ask you to show up. And I had finally, fully, for myself.